Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this webinar. It's the first of a series hosted by ISO Technical Committee 347, Data-Driven Agri-Food Systems. My name is Andres Ferreira. I'm the chair of TC 347, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. This series is designed to explore key technical areas where standardization can support innovation, sustainability, and interoperability in agri-food systems. Today's topic, smart apiculture, is a critical area where shared standards can help connect diverse actors from beekeepers and researchers to technology providers, supply chain partners, and policymakers. And we thought it would be great to start the series with it because today is World Bee Day. ISO Technical Committee 347 is a new and ambitious committee working to develop international standards that enable trustworthy, inclusive, and effective use of data across agri-food systems. This webinar is part of our commitment to transparency, engagement, and inclusive participation in the standards development process. Our aim today is to introduce key technical insights related to the topic of smart apiculture, to highlight how this topic connects to standardization opportunities, and to show you how you can actively participate in shaping upcoming international standards. A few housekeeping notes: that this session is being recorded and will be made available after the webinar. Also, please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A box or chat. We'll address as many as we can during the Q&A segment at the end. We might answer a few along the way as well. And we'll try to email you answers to the questions you pose in the Q&A after the webinar using the emails you provide. Now, we're very fortunate to be joined today by Dr. Xuan Li and Mr. Ziyuan Bao, who will lead us through today's discussion. Let me briefly introduce them. Dr. Xuan Li is the committee manager of ISO Technical Committee 34, Subcommittee 19, Bee Products. In 2016, she proposed establishing a subcommittee to work on bee products standardization on behalf of the Standardization Administration of China, SAC. In addition to being the committee manager of bee products in ISO, she's also the project leader of ISO new project 13508, propolis extract specification. She serves as a member of the ISO Smart Farming Coordination Committee and a member of the National Agricultural Fundamental and General Standardization Working Group in China. Dr. Li got her PhD in pharmacology from Nanjing Medical University in 2008 and took a postdoctoral associate position in the Yale School of Medicine in 2010. Currently, she's an associate professor and head of the Food Quality and Safety Department in Nanjing University of Chinese Medicine. She cares about bee health and the quality of bee products and cooperates with ISO TC 347, trying to use, in her words, the magic of smart technology standardization to make bees and their products healthier and more sustainable. Mr. Ziyuan Bao holds a Master of Science in Machine Learning and AI from the Imperial College of London and a first-class Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and AI from the University of Edinburgh. He currently works at Shilibatsun, Nanjing Health Industry Development Corporation, where he leads the development of a traceable smart apiculture management system. Since January of 2024, he has been actively involved in applying computer vision and IoT techniques to beekeeping, including the creation of a comb segmentation dataset and algorithms for automated detection of honey coverage. We'll hear a little bit about that later. He also leads a traceability project that uses AI and RFID technologies to ensure full transparency from hive to table. Bao participates in ISO TC 347 Ad Hoc Group 6 on livestock activity management. He's passionate about applying AI to agriculture and sees standardization as a key driver for quality assurance, sustainability, and digital transformation in the apiculture sector. With that, I'll now hand things over to Dr. Xuan Li to prepare the presentation. Dr. Li, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is our great pleasure to be here today to talk about the topic of smart apiculture. Andres had already introduced me, so I don't want to say more. And thank you, Andres, again for the introduction. ISO TC 34SC19 is a subcommittee to work on the standardization of the bee products. What do we do? We established in 2017 and have 35 participating members and 29 observing members around the world now. We published 4 standards in this field and another 4 are under developing. Of course, more are coming. We have liaisons to share our work with related organizations and get more experts to work together. Externalizations means they are out of ISO, and internalizations means we are inside ISO. Our scope is standardization of the whole process and circulation, the whole supply chain of all forms of bee products. Honey is the most famous one, and we also have other products too, like the propolis, bee pollen, bee wax, royal jelly, bee bread, bee venom, etc. We work on definitions, beekeeping practices, transportations, basic processing requirements, testing methods, storage, quality, etc. Authenticity is our greatest concern, and traceability is really important to our subcommittee. We have 4 working groups now. The working groups follow the name of the bee products. You can see in the screen. Our subcommittee is really active, both in ISO and liaison activities. We had 5 plenary meetings in different countries from different continents already. These pictures are the best memories in the past 8 years. Why do we need smart apiculture? Beekeepers and apiculture enterprises facing increasing challenges maintaining colony health, ensuring products quality, and meeting the growing demand for pollination services, and the bee products against a backdrop of environmental pressures, market volatility, and tightening regulatory frameworks. These pressures, combined with rising consumer expectations for traceability and sustainability, are driving the beekeepers and researchers to find new tools. Of course, using new analytical technologies, for example, the QNMR, LC-MS, data-informed decision-making across all stages, from the apiary to table is really attractive. We see it's smart apiculture. Traditional beekeeping practice largely rely on the experience of individual beekeepers and they keep traceability information manually, lacking systematic data collection and digitalization. In some digitized processing and inspection stages, each piece of equipment and digital platform often utilize its own formats, terminologies, and data models. This lack of digitalization and standardization significantly limits smart beekeeping from providing insights and integrating across systems at scale. And the decision-making systems will benefit both small-scale and commercial beekeepers. Again, let's review the standards published and publishing in our subcommittee 19. We cover honey, royal jelly, bee propolis, bee pollen, and they are the main international trade products in the bee products area. If we look at these standards from another angle, there are mainly 2 types of these standards. One is the specifications, and the other is about production management. I would like to use royal jelly and royal jelly production for examples to show you our stands producing data. This table is from specifications standards. In this chemical requirements table, we have characteristics of products like the water content, 10-HDA, etc., and they are the observed properties. This column is the observation methods, and this one is the limits we set for quality requirement. They are valid result ranges. Let's have a look at the marking. The name of the products, the harvesting country, and the storage condition, etc., are needed to be provided. Yes, we can see that we are producing data in our standards. Here is another example for the production management standard. Look at this table of the deliver note. We need to provide the name of the beekeepers, the location, bee species, and the bench number, etc. These are also data. This is a version of smart apiculture. This describes one possible implementation of apiculture management system. The traditional beekeeping industry can be divided into three parts: practice and production, storage and processing, trade and marketing. We also have a smart apiculture cloud ecosystem. This system is very similar to what motivated in the ISO 7673 work. A system like this requires interoperability standards. We cannot mandate this via standard. We can, however, use standards to enable a system like this. The chance came to discuss this possibility when ISO's Strategic Advisory Group of Smart Farming started 4 years ago. Luckily, Enable Smart Apiculture was included in their final report, and this happened in 2023. And from then on, the increasing collaboration between TC34IC19 and ISO TC347 starts. In 2024, we set up liaison, and now in 2025, we are calling for experts at SC19 level to join this discussion about smart apiculture standardization. And the big progress is today we are having this webinar. I will hand over the presentation to Ziyuan Bao. He is an expert. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shen Li. And thank you, everyone. My name is Ziyuan Bao. And for the next part, I'm going to talk about putting smart apiculture into practice. I think the question you might want to ask is, what are smart beekeeping? In simple, they are just tools that use electronics, sensors, and AI to assist beekeepers. After our research into some smart beekeeping products already on the market, we think they all have one or more of the following features. The first one, remote monitoring systems, which have sensors and wireless devices that track hive conditions like temperature, humidity, and weight. And it sends real-time data to the beekeepers. This the beekeepers check on their hives from afar and get alerts if something's wrong. The second feature is called database decision-making system. You can use a software that analyzes data such as images and sound from the hive to detect issues like diseases or pests and give recommendations on how to deal with it. These tools act like smart doctors for bee colonies, spotting problems that would be hard to find manually. The last one is called automated hives. They use high-tech hives equipped with robotics to handle routine beekeeping tasks automatically. For example, they can regulate the hive's environment, feed bees, control pests, or even harvest honey without human intervention. And next, let's go through some examples of exactly how they achieve these features. First, I think the Arnea perfecta is a perfect example for remote monitoring system. They have embedded sensors directly into the frame, which collect data like temperature, humidity, GPS location, and time. Once deployed in the hive, data can be viewed in real time through their mobile app. And if something unusual happens, like the temperature going outside the safe range, and the beekeeper will get an instant alert. Then we have two interesting examples, EPBA-B scanning and hive tracks. I'm grouping them together because they use a similar workflow. First, each hive or frame is tagged and identified on their app. Then the beekeepers take photos of the brood box using a smartphone. These images are analyzed using AI to detect issues like varroa mites or brood disorders. This helps beekeepers solve problems early and follow AI-generated recommendations. Both of them offer some remote monitoring, but their main focus is on intelligent diagnosis and decision-making. Now let me share some of the smart agriculture practice that Dr. Xuan Li and I have been working on. It is called 新云峰, which literally means bee combined with chip and cloud technology. We borrow the idea of using NFC tags to mark livestock like cows or sheep in the livestock industry. We embedded NFC chips into the frames and hive boxes, each with an unique ID. Using a smartphone, beekeepers can scan the tag and record key data like time, location, GPS, and observation results. The data will be uploaded into the database in the cloud. We also use drones to survey the apiary and nearby nectar resources and apply computer vision to analyze flowering areas and wax coverage on the honeycombs, as shown in the last picture. But we believe combining this information helps beekeepers make informed decisions. Compared to other projects, our focus is more on improving honey quality and yield, as well as enabling traceability from hive to table. The last example I'm going to show you is BeeWise. The most impressive feature is their automated hive system. It's a large container-sized unit with robotic components inside. These robots can feed the bees, treat mites, regulate temperature, applying insecticide, and more. And of course, it also includes a remote monitoring system and likely uses AI to support decisions. Honestly, their mechanical design is amazing. But at the same time, it is obviously more affordable than the previous solutions. And moreover, BeeWise focuses mainly on large-scale farm pollination services, so their system doesn't include automated honey harvesting. Now we have seen many examples of how to apply smart agriculture in real world. Now we come to an important chapter, which is how to standardize it. Before we dive into the technical detail of the standard itself, I'd like to give you an overview of how data-driven decision-making works in smart agriculture system. Let's start with this diagram. What you see here is a circular model representing one decision circle. And at the center of the circle is the producer. For small-scale operations, this is the beekeeper themselves. Each decision cycle begins with a plan. For example, the producer might want to set a target honey yield for the season. To support this planning, an advisor provides relevant recommendations. This advisor could be a human expert, the beekeeper themselves, or even AI-based advisory system. The advice is usually based on data, such as the health status of bee colonies, weather conditions, and also the lab tests. Those data and steps are called informing the decisions. Based on the advice, the producer then issues work orders, which are actually beekeeping activities. For example, to treat varroa mites, replace the old queen with a new one, or perform hive inspections. This stage is called making the decision. At this point, the work order is still just a plan, right? It only becomes a work record once the operator actually executed in the field. The work record includes detailed information about what was done, where and when it was done, and also the outcomes. The stage is executing the decision. All of the field data is collected and stored in a digital way, not using pen and paper. This is important because now you will have the superpower to generate the report and share it with the supply chain partners or regulators in a very efficient way. More importantly, this data can be used for analysis to inform future decisions, helping the producer make better, more scientific decisions in the next time around. We call it evaluating the decision. And this one decision cycle, which means it happens multiple times in each of the following production stages, from the planning, field preparation, to colony, care, harvest, and post-harvest. Now let's come back to the question of why we are developing a standard in the first place. As you may have noticed from the earlier examples of smart beekeeping applications, as well as our decision cycle, the systems generate a huge amount of data, from observations to field operations, and even post-harvest analysis. There's a problem. Each platform, each company, each research project tends to use their own data structure and their own methods of analysis and their own reporting format. As a result, it is incredibly difficult for stakeholders to communicate, compare, and share data efficiently, making collaboration difficult. So this is where the standardization comes in. Our goal is to clearly define what types of data should be collected in smart agriculture, and how the data should be structured and recorded, and how it can be analyzed and used to make decisions. With the shared standard, we can improve interoperability between systems and facilitate data exchange among stakeholders. And more importantly, the standard can also serve as a guide for traditional beekeepers who want to begin their journey into digitalization. Instead of starting from scratch, they'll have a clear, structured reference to follow, helping to reduce risk and also lower the barrier to entry. Let's now talk about the overall structure of the standard. Digitalizing the beekeeping industry touches many different layers, from how we define and collect data, and how the data is analyzed, and across all stages of production. And because of this complexity, a single standard isn't enough. Instead, we are developing a series of standards. The standards are divided into 3 parts, each building on the last. The part 1 is core concepts. This part defines the foundational elements, basic data formats and types such as time and geolocation. It sets the groundwork for the consistent structured data collection. The part 2 is data models, building on the core concepts. This part introduces more complex and domain-specific data models. It includes records related to the field activities, as well as data such as transport records and processing details. The last one is decision-making and traceability. This final part focuses on how to make use of the data we collected in the part 2. It provides guidance on data analysis methods to support decision-making for beekeepers, and defines how traceability systems should be structured to track products from hive to table. These 3 parts form a bottom-up framework, starting from the basic all the way to the intelligent application. To wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a few simple but important takeaways. First, we already have a solid foundation in traditional beekeeping and bee product standard, thanks to the work done by many of you here and experts in ISO. And secondly, smart technologies such as sensors, AI, and other digital tools are no longer distant concepts. They are practical, available, and ready to help us tackle some of the major issues in the beekeeping, from colony loss to traceability. And third, building the standards for smart apiculture can greatly enhance the data sharing across platforms and regions, and make decision-making more science-based. From a data science perspective, the more data we have, the more accurate and reliable decisions we can make. So in order to obtain more data, we need our joint efforts to improve the level of digitalization of the entire apiculture industry. Therefore, the last thing we would like to say is, this is the right time to collaborate. by working together now, we can shape a global, consistent, inclusive, and future-proof framework for smart agriculture.
Okay, I would like to show you what our plan is. Just now, we already discussed why we want standards for the smart agriculture and what they could contain. And then we could talk about who will be the one who joined this work. Of course, the experts from the TC347 and TC34SC19 are the main experts, but some liaison officers maybe can also join. And how? Experts meet to discuss use cases and data patterns and to fit them into the reference architecture and interoperability framework that TC347 is building based on TC23SC19 standards and the others I just showed. Ziyuan also showed some. And then we can discuss the interoperability and draft a new work item proposal and produce a single draft of the first part of the standard. And then where? Start an ad hoc group in TC347 is a choice. TC34 and SC19 can bring as many liaison officers as desired. And TC347 is using this pattern extensively, alternative at PWI. Next step to be agreed upon. Andres, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you for this exciting overview. Like I said earlier, today is World Bee Day, so we thought it was irresistible to start our webinar series with this topic. And so we just discussed participation into this project or similar ones. Question is how to get involved. Some of you in the audience are already TC347 members, but if you're not, I'll tell you a few quick aspects of it. Most of the work happens online within ad hoc groups and working groups and things like that. Then we have two big meetings of everybody every year. They're called plenaries. There's one that's virtual, that's coming up in early October. And the way that works is on 2 days of a week, we have a half day over Zoom. So a total between 6 and 8 hours of Zoom where we go over a lot of material of what the different groups are doing and think about how they can connect and how we can move forward together. Then we have an in-person plenary, of which we had our first one recently in March in Berlin. And that will also be in March next year, apparently in Berlin again, which is great, or somewhere in Germany. Then you work in working groups, ad hoc groups, advisory groups, and those meet more often. They meet as often as they feel it's necessary. Every 2 weeks or 3 weeks is very common. They set their own schedule. So how do you join? Well, there's two ways. One is through your national standards body. ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, has members. Those members are national standards bodies. They're, say, BSI, the British Standards Institute in the UK, or DIN in Germany, or ANSI in the US, or SON in Nigeria, JISC in Japan, and so forth. These organizations, in turn, organize, when they decide to be members of the TC, they organize what's called the Mirror Committee. That Mirror Committee is the way in which that national standards body determines how it wants to vote on the different ballots that we produce, or the experts it wants to send up to the different groups and so forth. So the way to participate through your national standards body is to be named to that Mirror Committee, which is often not managed by the national standards body itself, but by another organization called the Standards Development Organization that the national standards body delegates to. I know it sounds complicated, but the easy part is that if you contact us, we can help you find the way in through your country. I'm putting my email address. Feel free to email me with questions about this. A second way to participate is through a liaison organization that Dr. Lee was mentioning earlier. Those are organizations that our technical committees have links with. They're part of the industry or academia and are representative of some segment of our stakeholders. And it's very valuable to have their input on what we do. Examples for TC347 are the International Society of Precision Agriculture, or Ag Gateway, or the Ag Industry Electronics Foundation, or ICAR, a variety of organizations that have cultivated excellence in some aspect of what we do. So if you're a member of one of those organizations, you can request that they designate you as a liaison representative, and you can also participate in the groups and so forth that way. So finally, we want to be in touch with you. We'll email you some notes and material soon based on what we did here today. We have a LinkedIn page. We have our main ISO page as well. So please contact us that way. That info@isotc347.org email is very new. So I would trust the one I put in the chat right now. Let's give the other one a few days. And with that, I would like to open things up for questions. I've got one. Will these smart technologies increase the price of honey? So do you think that by adopting these things, the price of the product, let's think about it from the point of view of the beekeeper. So will they be paid more, or will they be paid less for their honey if they're using these technologies?
Yes, I think we may have the chance to increase the price if we use like the smart beehives. They are quite expensive. I mean, if you want to equip the hives with many sensors, sensors can provide more data to be collected and uploaded to the cloud. Of course, it will be expensive, right? But I think maybe we can consider another way. If we use only the tag on NFC tag, and we put it in the frame, and it can be used several years, several times. And I do think we can save a lot of money. It's a good try. It really depends on what kind of tools, what kind of equipment we need for these smart technologies to combine with the traditional beekeeping industry. Yeah.
All right. And I guess it's also reasonable to assume that if you have put in place a traceability system that allows you to sell batches of honey with a story, if you will, that can be traced back to an individual beekeeper, that honey is worth more than just regular anonymous bulk honey, right?
Yeah.
So
but I mean, if I'm the if I say I'm the consumer, if it's a little bit expensive compared the normal honey, if it has a data story, I prefer to have this because it works, right? Because it's clear and everything's yeah, it will be attractive to the moms. I think at least. Yeah. Thank you.
You see it. I see it at the farmers market all the time, where people pay outrageous amounts of money for honey that has a really nice, story behind it. We have another question from Jana Halil. Her first question is, how do you ensure in your work that the interests of all countries and populations are considered and respected?
Actually, to this question, that's why we are here. We tried several years to get more participants, try to involve more people in this work. Then we can understand what the stakeholders needs. So in TC347, we have a group. The name of the group is stakeholders, right? And
stakeholder engagement, yes.
Yeah. Led by Kenneth from New Zealand, right? So we had a meeting. I joined that group. So I do prefer to find many ways to let more people to know what we are doing, and hopefully more people will join, and then we can consider more about the interest from all different parties or stakeholders. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. What about countries from the global south that have poor access to technologies and connected devices? How do you deal with that?
I mean, of course, we need new tools and some equipment to do things. But standards we are considering to develop. I mean, also provide more information to keep the important points of the good quality products to be produced. And I think if you do not have a good enough, I mean, the technologies you can keep as simple as you can, and also consider do this manually. Maybe someday you can got, the world is changing fast, and maybe in the very near future you can have everything. Yeah.
Thank you. In TC 347, I think there's a lot of thought about empowering regional actors through standards and common infrastructure to be able to create relatively skinny apps that deal with a domain, such as diagnosing bee diseases through image analysis on frames, and be able to make that available to small producers in their phones. And in the case of places where people don't have smartphones, or their data plans are very, very expensive, that route often goes through the telecommunications provider. So we have some dialogue that we've initiated with telecom providers about how these sorts of things work when, for example, they enable the use of, say, Facebook on a feature phone in some market, and that the traffic of that app doesn't count against their cap, but their data cap, to see if there's some agricultural tools, for example, that could be treated in similar ways. So standardization in this case is an enabler to be able to get some tooling into the hands of folks in the global south that otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity for it. Another question that we've got from Dr. James Lowenberg de Boer. He chairs TC 347's Responsible Innovation Group, AG3. His question is, in the future, is there potential for an electronic identifier, an EID, for individual bees? This would be similar to EIDs for cattle. I can't imagine a bee with an ear tag, but the question is a good one.
Yes, I'm expecting to see this someday. It's great, we do have difficulties to record the moves of the bees because they fly so fast. So if we can have the tag on the bee's wing or somewhere, that means we can record where they are flying, and then we can get all the information and draw the route where all the bees fly to somewhere, maybe tens of thousands of the bees. That will be fantastic. Actually, for this topic, we discussed in our advisory group time in livestock group. Yes, we hope we can have, but right now our tags are too huge to the bees. Someday, yes.
The spirit of full disclosure, I am actually a beekeeper, so I think about these things sometimes. Bees live only 6 weeks, right? So worker bees that go out to the field live only about 6 weeks. They live longer in the winter, but so it makes it very, not cost effective to try to tag an individual bee. So then you say, what would I want to do that for? So are there problems that individual identification would help solved? Well, there are some. Bees sort of drift between different hives in the sort of contemporary approach of putting a lot of hives together in an apiary, right? When they're in the middle of the forest and there's a significant distance between hives, this doesn't happen. But in a human managed apiary with a lot of boxes close to one another, the bees sort of drift in and out and to transmit diseases and parasites such as varroa mites. So having some individual tagging could help with the epidemiology of these things, and also to understand some of the dynamics, the mating dynamics of the queens when they go and go to an area where there's a lot of drones that come from many different hives. So it's an intriguing thought. I don't know that it's going to be practical anytime soon, but it is intriguing. We have another question from Alariza Atri from Iran. How can smart apiculture address climate change impact on small farms? I have an idea of where this could start. So one of the technologies that Zion showed us was this intelligent monitoring and the ability to use imaging to understand what's going on in the hive. For example, they have an app where they take a picture using a phone of the honey frames, right, inside the hive. As part of a regular inspection, keepers take out frames and they look at them, right, and then they put them back. In rare cases, they take notes, right? So what's going on there is they're taking pictures, and that allows them to diagnose what's going on, not only to make some hypotheses about what might be going wrong, but also to see what's going right, like saying there's larvae, there's pollen, there's a certain fraction of the frame that has honey in it, and so forth. Pollen is identifiable by color in a given region. So when you're looking at the pollen cells, they can be recognized, and the kind of pollen that you have in there can be inferred based on color and timing and so forth. So one of the big problems that we're seeing related to climate change is when a plant phenology is starting to get out of whack with the availability of water and so forth, right? We had figured out how to grow crops in certain environments, but now say the winter doesn't get cold enough for crops to fertilize, and then they have problems starting back up again in the spring, or don't pollinate properly, and so forth. So being able to understand what plants are producing pollen at what time, because you're collecting that in your beehive, is, I think, a rather revolutionary, I guess, application of smart beekeeping. I think that would be very valuable as a tool to adapt to climate change, Alariza. Sorry for the long-winded answer. We have another question. Is there any kind of quality check under this smart system? So let's morph that into, how do you do quality checking in what you're imagining?
Actually, right now we see smart apiculture system only collect much more data and set up the data model. But if we see the quality control parameters, normally we need the testing results from the labs. Right now in this system, I think we only upload the numbers in the right format to load into the system, keep the records. But I do not think it's easy to do this testing automatically. Right now it's difficult. We have very complicated testing methods. If you have the chance to check our published standard, some of the equipments are really expensive. It's not possible to do automatic thing. Yeah.
Associated with that, Mason from Sudan brings up the question of the purity of honey, right? So let's turn that into adulteration. You and I have had conversations before about just how extremely difficult it is to detect adulterated honey, right? When people start putting in thick sugar syrup into honey, syrup that has, say, the same sugar content as the honey is supposed to have. You told me a really scary number. Let's scare our attendees. What is the sort of maximum percentage of sugar syrup that people that adulterate honey can often get away with and not get caught?
Am I am I telling some?
No, you're helping people realize how big a problem this is.
Yeah, I actually maybe not that accurate. Some people told me if the syrup into the honey around 40 to 50%, it's difficult to figure out by using testing method. I don't know whether it's correct or not.
So there's a lot of motivation to work on this, because if you can get away with selling honey that is 50% sugar, imagine that the properties of that honey have been affected tremendously. So one more question. We have one last minute from Tuyi. In the next 10 years, how do you think AI and emerging technologies will shape beekeeping? If you're not limited by funding, what research would you be doing? Can you tell us one thing?
Wow, that's great. I will build up our ecosystem and collect all the data around the world. If it's open, I need the beekeepers are happy, the stakeholders are happy. I do think we have enough data, and I do think we find some new things we don't know now. That's really good to me. Yeah.
A better understanding of which traits are desirable and how to promote them, like hygienic traits so that the bees get rid of the varroa mites themselves. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much to our two great speakers. We highly appreciate it. Again, happy World Bee Day, and thank you to all of our attendees. And in about 2 weeks, we will have our next webinar on June 2nd on smart irrigation. We hope to see all of you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.